Hello, this is wmpyr. For today's video, I want to talk about using eskrima for actual self-defense in the real world, so real-life application, essentially. So when we say self-defense, it is a broad, very broad term. So I think we got to start off with different aspects of self-defense. So the first one, let's talk about home invasion. So basically protecting your home type scenario. I think for most people here in the United States, firearm is the primary weapon. So in that case, I think that the good thing about eskrima is that you can use eskrima with the firearm, believe it or not. Of course, it can help things like balance and focus and concentration and just your athleticism, agility, things like that. Because if your body, even if you're not an old person, is not athletic and your body feels like an old and grumpy person, for you to take cover, for you to go from one place to another location, you're not going to do a good job of that if you're not relatively fit. So obviously eskrima or any martial arts style can help you out with that for sure. But the other thing also is that once your bullets are gone, this is not Hollywood where you're just going to toss your firearm aside. That is a big old chunk of metal that's in your hand right there, whether it's like a rifle and you have two hands on one weapon, or you have like a handgun where it's one weapon in one hand. Either way, you could use those as improvised weapons using eskrima skills, using your angles of attack, heaven six, figure eights, stuff like that. So definitely that can come into place. Although I do believe more advanced is that you can use your eskrima techniques with a firearm that is still has bullets and while firing. I believe that you can, and also you can combine it with a blade. There are some knives designed to go with the firearm. You could also take a look at World War I and II, where they actually had bayonets and stuff. So or even before that. So if you look at that, it just seemed like a good idea to combine bladed weapon with the firearm. So why should there be a separation? I believe that you can combine the two tactics together, the two techniques together. But also, in modern day today, you want to have your firearm locked up for a lot of obvious reasons. So the accessibility is not going to be as readily fast available even in your own home. So in that case, I believe it's good to also have non-firearm weapons around the house. So maybe if the threat doesn't seem like red alert, you heard a glass breaking, someone's breaking your window and coming in, and there's like 4 or 5 of them and they all sound like they're getting ready to assault you guys. Okay, that's a super extreme situation, but maybe it's just like a knock on the door late at night. So for that, maybe you don't need to go to your firearm right away. So in this kind of situation, you could have other weapons around the house, one by the door, one in your bedroom. I think with something like that, it doesn't have to be super extreme, because with these kinds of non-firearm weapons, it's okay, I think, to have laying around in the house, as long as it's not like right there in the living room for your kid to grab a hold of it and bash his sibling. As long as it's not like that, I think it's all right, I really do. Okay, so that's kind of like a home defense type situation. Now, let's talk about like in the street, right? So basically in the street, you're walking along in the street and someone comes up to you. They're very aggressive. So in this case, we're talking about assault. We're talking about someone who's trying to mug you, right? So in this kind of situation, first of all, eskrima that I've shown on some of the videos is for you guys to practice your awareness and to actually practice it in the street. To practice your eskrima techniques in the street, in the real world environment where you're actually going to be using it. So whether you're at the mall or in a grocery store or whatever, I believe that you should be constantly practicing it to where Of course, you can't be doing this kind of full motion right there because you're going to look like you're an insane person. But I mean, just even with your fingers or with your hands, just making slight movements like this down here, you know, where your hands are low and you're just kind of like moving very, very discrete movements, but still in your mind, you're thinking of the full technique. So this motion, maybe you just go like this with your fingers, 1, 2, instead of going 1, 2 like that. To me, this is very important. First of all, if you do this in the real world, you are getting practice. Practice is what makes you good. So you need to practice, practice, practice. So that's one thing. You're getting practice. Number 2 is you're always being aware and observant, because when people pass by, you're practicing your technique. That means every human being that passes by you is always going to be noticed. That it is impossible for someone to be there unnoticed because you're always practicing your technique. So that is your first line of defense already. Your practice is your awareness right there. And so if you are doing that, then chances are that's already a good thing. No matter what self-defense style that you're doing, number 1 starts with awareness. So you have that. Sometimes you don't even get the chance. Sometimes you get caught off guard. If they're really good, they trap you, and then boom, that's what it's all about. They're there to trap you, to throw you off guard, to catch you at your weakest moment. So once that happens, when they come out of nowhere, the next stop is, chances are, if you are an eskrima practitioner, you train with the knives, hopefully. So you have a knife on you, okay? Or at the very least, you have some kind of, hopefully like a kubotan or a tactical flashlight, or even your keys on you that you could use for self-defense, or even your baseball cap. And there are stuff that you could do to like add some stuff on your baseball cap to make it a little bit better for self-defense and stuff. But anyway, you get my drift. A eskrima person trains for self-defense with weapons, because that's what we do. We do a lot of weapons. Yes, we have an empty-handed version, and hopefully you practice also the empty hand aspect of eskrima enough that you will be comfortable with that. But your first to go should be a weapon right away. And that should tell you that because you're using a weapon, that this is 100% strictly for self-defense. This is because if you cross that line, now you're doing the assaulting. Now you're going to go to jail. So this has to be 100% for self-defense. So that's a good thing about eskrima to me, is that if you understand eskrima, you understand you're using weapons, then you know that this is for self-defense, that you are not going to be attacking people, you're not going to go overboard with it. And the other thing is, because you're using weapons, I feel like even if you are a smaller or weaker person, how does a smaller, weaker person defend themselves against a bigger, stronger guy? Some people will say the answer is technique. I say the answer is weapons. I think historically that's been the case, and so technique definitely can help, but I think weapons is way, way superior to technique in that sense. But why not have both, right? Why not? So definitely train both. But okay, so you do have your knife there, but it should be for extreme circumstances. It should be for backup. So the other situation is that if that is not able to come out, then the next thing is improvised weapons. I believe that you're able to grab anything, remote control, fork, whatever, a pen, shoe, a rock, and that becomes your weapon right there. Why? I mean, one of the reasons I said to you guys before is that I don't want to touch the guy. I don't know where this person's been. I don't want any kind of diseases. So it's and plus sometimes things happen so quickly, I don't know if they have a weapon. So especially if they have a weapon, I don't want to defend against their weapon with my bare hands. I want to defend against it. Even if this is all I got, I'd rather have their weapon hit this than my hand. So even from that kind of perspective, weapon is a good thing. So improvised weapons is the next thing. Probably may even be more readily accessible. So as I'm walking the streets, I am looking for improvised weapons. wherever you are in a new location, you should be looking for improvised weapons. Okay, so definitely after you look for the exit and you know your exit routine there, once you go to a restaurant, you figure that out, then the next thing is you should be looking at improvised weapons, right? All right, and then of course, like I said, we do have the empty hand aspect, but now the video is over 10 minutes long, so let me stop it right here. Thank you for listening, and take care, folks.